Hi, my name's Ankit, and I'm a final year medical student at the University of Cambridge.
And hi there, my name's Ellie, and I'm also a final year medical student at Cambridge. And welcome to the channel In2Med, which Ankit and I have created to help other medical students with the problems that we faced when we were at medical school.
In this video, we're going to discuss some of the problems that we faced when learning clinical medicine, and our solution that helped us get through it.
Click on the link below to get access to all of our clinical modules for free, and subscribe to keep seeing more videos. Starting out at medical school is really hard. There's so many new things to learn, so many conditions, so many drugs, and so many treatments. And on top of that, you're expected to suddenly know how to take a history, how to examine patients, how to scrub in, and how to turn up on a ward and genuinely feel part of the team. What Ankit and I think this boiled down to was not only needing to learn so much, but not knowing how to learn it. For us, there wasn't one clear, unifying approach as to how we were meant to tackle this problem. It varies by the medical school, but it can range from having pathology lectures, having clinics, having ward rounds, and then also your online sources of information and your standard textbooks. And it can just be really easy to be overwhelmed by all of this, and we needed a more organised and structured way to tackle it.
Being new on the wards, I really wasn't sure where to start, and I felt very anxious. So I decided to try a number of different methods. Now you might be able to relate to a few of these. The first method that I tried is called the symptom-based approach. Now essentially what this means is that you choose a symptom and then learn all the different types of conditions which might produce that symptom, and then the pathology, the pharmacology, and all the investigations along the way. Now this is how a lot of medical schools teach, because they want to try and center your learning around a symptom that you might have seen in a patient. Now whilst this gave me a lot of information, I found that it started to get really complicated quite quickly. For example, I'd find that for one symptom, there's so many different conditions that can cause it, and these conditions might have absolutely no link to each other. For example, let's just take a simple symptom like vomiting. Even for something like vomiting, there's so many different systems that could cause this. It could be a neurological issue like raised intracranial pressure, or a GI issue, or something like diabetic ketoacidosis. So essentially, just from one symptom, I'd have to basically learn all of medicine. And that's why I gave up on this method quite early on. The next method that I tried was essentially just taking a little notebook with me and carrying it around everywhere, just trying to jot down every little bit of knowledge that I could find on the wards. This was good at first, and I thought that I was really starting to learn a lot of things. But then I did a mock, and I found that none of the things that I'd learned were actually that useful. And finally, I came onto one of the most popular methods amongst medical students, just doing question after question from question banks like PassMed. Now what I'll say about this method is that whilst it might help you pass your exams, I don't think it's actually making you into a good doctor.
So, after trying all these different approaches out, it really came down to, is there a better way? And for us, this was really having a systems-based approach. So, for instance, take the cardiovascular system. We take 4 things. We look at the background, we look at the drugs, we look at the tests and investigations, and then, only then, do we look at the conditions. It sounds simple and obvious, but it's actually really hard to do in practice. Now, this method does take longer, but it really does give you a better understanding of what's going on.
So let's take an example, and my favourite system is the endocrine system. So first thing that we do is cover the basic knowledge, and it really is quite basic. Essentially, there's 2 types of cells that we need to know in the thyroid gland. There's the follicular cells which synthesize thyroid hormone, and the parafollicular cells which secrete calcitonin. The next thing you need to know is how is thyroid hormone made? And the key is it's made in a series of enzyme-controlled reactions, and it uses the element iodine, which is really important. Like a lot of hormones, the release of thyroid hormone is controlled by the pituitary gland using a series of negative feedback mechanisms. And the key thing to learn, which a lot of students forget, is what actually thyroid hormone does. I find the easiest way is to break these up into 4 sections. The metabolic ones, cardiovascular, development, and sexual. Essentially, in terms of the metabolic ones, thyroid hormone increases your metabolic rate and it sensitizes your body to the sympathetic nervous system. That's why you're going to generate heat and lose weight, and it raises your BMR. Similarly, for cardiovascular, it's going to increase your heart rate and force of contraction, and also the rate of your breathing. And it's also needed for good development. That's why it's really important in babies and to maintain sexual function as well. So now that we've covered the basic knowledge, we go on to the drugs. And this is where it makes sense, because one naturally leads on to the other. Essentially, you can imagine that if someone's hypothyroid, the drug that they need is going to have to mimic the thyroid actions. And that's exactly what thyroxine does. Again, in terms of the tests and investigations, to investigate thyroid function, there's a group of tests called the thyroid function tests. And having learned the negative feedback mechanisms and how it's controlled, we know what we should expect if someone is hypothyroid: low T4 and high TSH. And now, coming on to the clinical conditions and the symptoms. Let's imagine what someone would be if they are hypothyroid. So, revisiting what thyroid hormone actually does. If you're lacking it, you're going to be cold, bradycardic, have slow reflexes, and generally just be dampened down. And then we can address the specific conditions and symptoms like Hashimoto syndrome. Now, don't worry if you didn't get that. It was just meant to be a quick example of how you can use a system-based approach to understand a group of thyroid conditions. All of the relevant clinical info, the pharmacology and investigations you can find on our portal In2Med. But now, hopefully you should have the understanding and confidence to go onto the wards and see all these things in action for real.
From all these experiences, we really just wanted to create a resource that people would find useful and that would have helped us. We now have a website where you can become a member and have free access to all of our clinical modules. Becoming a member is as simple as registering, and then you'll have access to your own members dashboard where you can track your progress through the clinical modules. We've really tried hard to boil this down to the core material that you need to know for medical school. And we've done it all in a systems-based approach, so you can really understand the material and above all, learn it. More than anything, we really just want to get more people involved in the In2Med community, creating resources and really helping each other and making medicine more of a team approach.
So we really hoped you found our first video useful. We'd really encourage you to try our resources on our portal for free. We'll be releasing new clinical modules every 2 weeks.
If you liked our video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be releasing more videos with each of the clinical modules.
And finally, if anyone wants to get involved, just get in contact. You'll get the chance to be part of something new and hopefully be part of a resource that's going to help a lot of students going forward.
See you next time.